What's good today? You got reproductive system. So viviparous, um, oviparous, and ovoviviparous. So viviparous means that they give birth to live young who are fully functional. Oviparous means that you lay eggs. Oviviparous means that you make eggs, but the freaking things are born inside of you. So you're gonna like oviparous and oviviparous. They use yolks to supplement the nutrients, while viviparous the placenta. So the two gonads are testes and ovaries. Two main functions of gonads is to produce gametes and also produce the sex hormones that lead to our secondary sex traits. So yeah, gametes and sex hormones. They're mainly regulated by follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. Those are the two hormones that are released by the pituitary gland. Yeah. So 4 structures of the reproductive system for the female is we're gonna first have the ovary, then we're gonna have the fimbria, which connected to the fallopian tubes, which is the oviduct. We're gonna go into the uterus, and then after the uterus, there's gonna be the vagina. So the fimbria, those are like finger-like projections that extend onto the ovaries that will kind of grab the eggs from the ovary. The zygote is formed, or fertilization occurs in the fallopian tube or the oviduct. The cervix is just in between the vagina and the uterus. It's not mentioned here as a main structure, but they were talking about something like that. Okay, so where's the testes located? They're located in the scrotum, which is just a sac. 6 structures of male reproduction. So 7 up, seminiferous tubules, epididymal cells or epididymis, vas deferens, ejaculatory duct, urethra, and then the penis. It's a little awkward. But so what are what is seminiferous tubules do? They're the ones that make. That's where spermatogenesis occurs. They're the ones that are making the sperm. So spermatogenia, those are like the primary. Like those are like the OGs, bro. Like those are like from the very beginning. Kind of. Wait, let me just look for. What does it talk about spermatogenia? I need you on that bitch. Shabang. Spermatogenesis, germ cells that undergo. Okay, spermatogonia. These are germ cells that undergo meiosis. So there's. Okay, so there's the germ cells, then there's the somatic cells, and then there's the gametes. So the spermatogonia, those are the germ cells for males. So it's the same thing for oogenia or whatever. So these are going to undergo meiosis, and they're going to make the sperm. So what do Sertoli cells do? I like to think Sertoli sounds like serve. So they serve the sperm, like they help them mature. They provide, like they nurture them and they develop it. Where are they and what stimulates them? They're located within the seminiferous tubules. And then the Leydig cells are, the Sertoli cells are stimulated by follicle stimulating hormone. Leydig cells are stimulated by luteinizing hormone. And they are in between the seminiferous tubules. The epididymis is where the sperm finally matures, gaining motility kind of. The vas deferens, that's just the kind of tube that goes from the epididymis to the outside, basically, like to the ejaculatory duct. It uses peristalsis through smooth muscle movement in order to move that sperm out during ejaculation. The reaccessory glands, what do they do overall? So there's the seminal vesicle. Okay, wait, let me rethink. There's seminal. I'm trying to look away from the screen now. There's seminal vesicles. There's the prostate gland, and there's the Cowper's gland. So the Cowper's gland makes mucus. I remember that from Bio 30. Let me just make sure though. Oh, why is it like glitched out? Secrete seminal. Okay, so Cowper's. Okay, so it says Cowper's produces fluid to lubricate the urethra and neutralize any activity from residual urine. So what I learned when I was in Bio 30, which is 2 years ago, was that it secreted mucus. I remember that because mucus sounds like moo, cow, moo. But I guess that's wrong. So seminiferous tube. Okay, so the seminal vesicle releases 3 things. It releases fructose for energy for the sperm. It has like an alkaline kind of buffer, like not like. Okay, wait. What am I even answering right now? Okay, 3 things from the seminal vesicle. There's fructose, which is energy for the sperm, like a sugar. Then, so does that mean sweet? I've never tried that, and I hope not to. So there's fructose. There's prostaglandins, which cause friggin' muscle contractions in the female reproductive tract. Then there's also mucus, which provides liquid for the sperm. So the accessory glands overall, they just make modifications. They add things to form semen. So the other thing is Cowper's gland. That is just adding, not mucus. It's just adding secretions to make it more basic, because the female reproductive thing is acidic. So you gotta like kind of even it out. So you make it like basic or alkaline. The prostate gland, slightly alkaline fluid. Okay, so the prostate gland is also making alkaline fluid. Okay, so the prostate gland is responsible for making it slightly alkaline, so more basic. Cowper's gland produces fluid to lubricate the urethra and neutralize any acidity from residual urine. Damn. So so urethra and uterus are 2 different things. That's what I get confused about. Okay, so there's seminal vesicle, Cowper's gland, and prostate gland. So seminal vesicle releases fructose. Mucus, and prostaglandins. Prostate gland will release alkaline stuff to make it more basic. Then the Cowper's will make it more lubricative to exit the urethra, and also to make it more alkaline and neutralize urine. Okay, so what 2 processes occur at the same time? This is the female reproductive system. So it's like the endometrium development, and then like actual ovulation. Oogenesis. Oh wait, hold on. What 2 processes occur at the same time? Okay, so I was wrong. It's oogenesis and follicular development. I moved way past. So what process happens before birth in oogenesis? So what's going to happen is before birth, before birth. So it's like the oogenia, they'll undergo meiosis. Oogenesis begins during the female embryonic development. Precursor egg cells, oogenia, undergo mitosis to primary oocytes. Primary oocytes begin meiosis. Okay, so wait, hold up. So what does the spermatogenia do? Spermatogenia are germ cells that undergo meiosis. So these don't freaking duplicate with mitosis, they just go to meiosis. However, the oogenia, they will do mitosis into primary oocytes, and then they'll start meiosis, those oocytes. However, they'll be arrested in prophase 1, and they will not continue going up until puberty. Okay. So oogenia, these are the precursor kind of cells. They become oocytes through mitosis. That doesn't make sense, bro. They are arrested in prophase 1. What role does the follicle have before birth? Doesn't really have a role. It's just there, kind of. Composed of granulosa cells, it's inactive at this point. So now during puberty, we're going to go through another change. What happens to the follicle? Okay, so the primary oocyte doesn't really change too much during puberty. It just stays kind of how it is, but the follicle will start to become bigger into a secondary follicle and just continue to develop. So a few follicles are selected to continue development, with one becoming dominant. The follicle continues to grow and mature with increasing cell layers that respond to changing hormone levels in the menstrual cycle. So yeah, during puberty, the follicle will just become mature basically. Then oogenesis, nothing really happens. It says here that it continues through meiosis, but it'll stop at metaphase 2. Or no. Complete meiosis 1 to become a secondary oocyte plus polar body. Okay, so after meiosis 1, you're going to have an oocyte. Okay, because you're not doing the full thing. Oh, and then it stops at metaphase 2. Yeah, that's what I just said, bro. Okay, so let's rethink this, right? So before birth, the oogenia are going to undergo mitosis apparently, and they're going to become oogenocytes. So primary oogenocytes, because the oogenia are precursor. So then these oocytes are going to be arrested within the prophase 1. They're going to start meiosis, but they're just going to stop in prophase 1. So now the follicle doesn't really do too much. It's just composed of granulosa cells, and it's just there kind of. Now during puberty, the follicle is going to grow and it's going to develop into a mature follicle. Why is it called that? I'm not too sure why it's called the follicle. It'll just reach they'll develop kind of. A few of them will be selected. Okay. Now, what does the primary oocyte do? The primary oocyte will begin meiosis, and it'll complete meiosis 1, but then stop, and it'll be arrested in metaphase 2. So what are we left with? We're left with an oocyte, which is called a secondary oocyte now, and then there's going to be a polar body, which is the other, because there's two haploid cells that arise. So we're going to have the oocyte, and then we're going to have the polar body, because the polar body is just inactive, right? So the zona pellucida, that's a good question. I don't really know. It's like a gap, I think. But I still have to learn diversity of life, bro. I don't even know it. Okay, I'm not too sure as to what is going on. What is the zona pellucida? I don't know, bro. on this diagram, it's just a little layer around it. I know that the antrum, I believe, or the theca cell, the theca cells will produce estrogen. The antrum is a fluid-filled cavity. The zona pelluda. The zona pelluda forms a glycoprotein layer, and that is used for, I think, contracting the sperm or something. What does the secondary oocyte release? Where does it stop? I believe it releases the polar body, and it stops in metaphase 2 until fertilization. The corpus luteum here has the main function of producing hormones. That corpus albicans is just the dead version of the corpus luteum. The disintegrated version is just not going to do anything. So let's see, ovulation. Follicle ruptures in order to allow for, and it allows for the follicle ruptures in order to allow for release of secondary oocyte into fallopian tube. What's going on right now? Follicle ruptures in order to allow for the release of the oocyte and the release in the fallopian tube. So where's the start of this diagram? Okay, so you have the primordial follicles, the primary follicle, the secondary follicle, and the secondary follicle with the antrum. Then you're going to have a mature follicle, and then you're going to release an egg, basically. And then you're going to get the corpus luteum, and then you're going to get the corpus albicans, which is the dead version. So what process do spermatogonium undergo? What do they become? So they will undergo meiosis, I believe, and they become spermatocytes. Holy mother, bro. This is so cooked. It'll become a primary spermatocyte. Okay, so what is going on? Okay, so it makes sense now. Spermatogonium and spermatogenia are different things, right? Because oogenium are different than oogenia, I think, right? Dude, I need to know this much, bro. So what process do spermatogonium undergo? So what are spermatogenia? They'll undergo mitosis to replicate. So I'm assuming these are the gonad cells, the gamete cells, the gonad cells, the sex cells. They're going to become primary spermatocytes. These are gametes. They're going to undergo meiosis and divide. No, these spermatocytes must be, because they're undergoing meiosis, so they have to be the gonad cells, right? I don't even know, bro. There's a slide at the very beginning about the types of gonad cells. Germ cells, spermatogonium and oogonium are germ cells. So now fast forward back to where we were. Spermatogonium, these are the germ cells. They will undergo mitosis to replicate. Then the spermatogonia differentiate into primary spermatocytes. So what's the difference between spermatogonium and spermatogenia? What is the difference between spermatogenia and damn, I spelled that so bad. Oh, it's just the difference in plural, bro. What the heck? Okay, so spermatogonium and spermatogenia are the same thing. They're just one's plural and one's not. So they're going to undergo mitosis. They're going to go differentiate through They're going to differentiate into primary spermatocytes. These spermatocytes will undergo meiosis 1, and then they'll go into secondary. So those primary spermatocytes will then go into, so the primary spermatocyte is going to go meiosis 1. Then you're going to get secondary spermatocytes, which are 2 of them. Okay, wait, this is low-key geeked, bro. So spermatogeneum is where you start with. Then you're going to do mitosis, get primary spermatocyte. Then you're going to undergo meiosis 1, you're going to get secondary spermatocyte, which is 2. Why does it look haploid? 2 diploid cells. Okay, then you're going to undergo meiosis 2, and you're going to get spermatid. And those are what you need. Then those are going to differentiate into the spermatozoa. What is going on, bro? What do those turn into? Where? Spermatids continue anatomic development into spermatozoa. Spermatozoa are then released to the epididymis, and they become motile. So they become motile in the epididymis. So what are the 3 portions of spermatozoa? So there's like the head portion, the middle portion, and the tail portion. The tail portion is the flagella, which is used for mobility. Then there's the mid area, which is full of mitochondria to supply energy for the flagellum. Then there's the head part, which contains the nucleus, like the genetic information, and also it contains the acrosome, which are just things that like penetrate the egg. It says here that they're hydrolytic enzymes penetrating the egg. So what is capacitation? So there's this thing called capacitation, which is when the sperm, when they get into the female reproductive tract, they become like supercharged and they start moving super fast. So they become like super mature and they become like super fast, you know what I'm saying? So yeah. What are the effects of testosterone injection? So there's 5 effects. 1 is smaller testes. Lower sperm count is the second one. Increased muscle mass is the third one. I don't know. Increased estrogen and less testosterone. Okay, so let me run through that again. So there's 5 effects. So there's 2 increases. There's going to be increase in muscle mass and increase in estrogen. There's going to be a decrease in testicular size, like decrease in testes size, decrease in testosterone, like natural testosterone, and then there's going to be a decrease in sperm. So why? So testosterone is controlled by a negative feedback loop with the hypothalamus and all that. So that means that if you inject testosterone, your body's going to be like, yo, we got a lot of testosterone, and that's going to cause a lot of muscle mass, because that's just how testosterone works. It increases muscle mass. Increasing testosterone will also increase estrogen, because with testosterone, some of that gets converted into estrogen. So it's just like that. So if you have more testosterone, then more turns into estrogen. Now, when you increase testosterone, the negative feedback loop will be like, yo, we got enough testosterone, we got to chill on that. So it's going to inhibit FSH and LH, which will inhibit spermatogenesis, which will inhibit the use of the testes, which will inhibit the testosterone produced by those testes. The testes will become small in size because they're not being used. Hope that makes sense. So the 3 phases of the ovarian cycle, this is so cooked, bro. So the follicular phase is the first phase. This is, it's kind of dark outside, bro. It's 10:34. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, like I record these videos and I'm like, damn, I look at the time and it's like 50 minutes go by. I'm like, there's no way I've been talking for 50 minutes. But I probably have been. So follicular phase is the first phase. So there's 3 phases of the ovarian cycle. The follicular phase, the luteal phase, and there's ovulation in between. So there's follicular phase, ovulation, and the luteal phase. So now the follicular phase is the start. So there's going to be low levels of estrogen, which will cause the hypothalamus to release follicle-stimulating hormone, which, no. It'll release gonadotropin, which will tell the anterior pituitary to release estrogen and progesterone. Is that right? Gonadotropin releasing hormone, FSH and LH will be released. So there's going to be an initial FSH. Okay, so how is gonadotropin released? It's released in pulses. So it's going to have an initial burst, and then it's going to go increase and decrease in pulses. That'll cause different pulses of that'll cause it to be released. So FSH initially rises to stimulate the follicle, and then is suppressed by negative feedback. LH continues to rise slowly. Estrogen continues to rise as well, accumulating towards the end of the follicular phase through positive feedback. So estrogen uses positive feedback, and there's going to be a little progesterone. Wait, what? What does it cause? What is the initial burst? Wait, what does it cause? So it causes FSH to increase. So then we're going to go into the ovulation, which is when, how does the estrogen and follicle interact with each other? It's an autocrine signal. The estrogen will release from the follicle, and then it'll keep on stimulating each other. That's why estrogen is a positive feedback loop. Ovulation is caused. What does the estrogen peak cause? So estrogen peak will cause two hormones to increase. Okay, so estrogen levels will peak, and that will trigger the rapid frequency, so it will increase the pulse effect of gonadotropin releasing hormone. So it'll increase FSH and LH. That LH will cause the LH surge and will trigger ovulation, and it'll also lead to progesterone production. I believe it's going to release progesterone because of the corpus luteum. So you said that right next. Corpus luteum starts to ramp up progesterone production. Negative feedback from increased progesterone and estrogen, so there's going to be super high levels of that, signaling that ovulation occurred. And that'll negatively feedback back to the hypothalamus or whatever, and say we don't need no LH and FSH. So yeah. So luteal phase, the corpus luteum produces estrogen and progesterone. Oh my god. Estrogen and progesterone stimulate development of the endometrium. What hormone peaks during the luteal phase? What? My friends. What the heck? Luteal phase produces corpus. Okay, so corpus luteum produces progesterone and estrogen. What hormone peaks? I'm not too sure. Probably estrogen. Maybe progesterone. Who knows? What large event will decide if we continue implantation, if we implant or we don't implant? So if there's no implantation, how will gonadotropin releasing hormone change? How would it change? If there's no implantation, it's going to be we don't need to keep it, right? So it'll repeat the cycle. So no implantation, negative feedback on the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus will stop releasing gonadotropin releasing hormone, which will stop releasing FSH and stop producing LH, which will stop producing estrogen, which will stop producing progesterone. And then having no LH will cause the corpus luteum to disintegrate into the corpus albicans, and then it'll just disintegrate. If there is implantation, the HCG will start to develop again. HCG is what maintains the corpus luteum, and that's produced by the placenta, right? Chronic gonadotropin. So it'll maintain the corpus luteum. The corpus luteum will produce progesterone and estrogen, and then eventually the placenta will take over for progesterone and HCG. What type of hormone is HCG? I believe it's a peptide hormone. What is the primary function and what does it get replaced by? Oh, you use it for like birth tests, like testing, like birth, like pregnancy tests. 3 phases of menstrual. So there's menses, which is when you shed the menstrual layer. So what causes it? It's a good question. I don't know. Yeah, so HCG is a peptide hormone, function in maintaining the corpus luteum, replaced by progesterone from the placenta. That's how you test for pregnancy. Progesterone is a steroid hormone. Tells you to keep this stuff, right? Okay, so menstrual cycle. There's menstrual, proliferative, and secretory. So menstrual cycles first 1 to 5. So that is when you shed, right? So that means that's going to be basically luteal or ovulation. No, not ovulation. It'll be luteal with no implantation. So that means you would have low LH, low FSH, low everything. That means you're going to have no corpus luteum, so low levels of everything, and then you're going to shed it. Then the proliferative phase, that'll be when you restart the cycle. So this will be the follicular phase, which is when you're developing, so it's going to have like FSH, gonadotropin releasing hormone, all that stuff is going to start building up. Then secretory phase, that will be the luteal phase. Estrogen and progesterone are released from corpus luteum. Increased growth and develop, so you're going to start developing it due to estrogen and progesterone from the corpus luteum. Yo, this is genuinely raps, bro. What hormones are released with female hormone contraception? What hormones are increased? I want to say estrogen and progesterone. Why? Because it's a negative feedback loop, right? So if you have high estrogen and high progesterone, the body's going to be like, yo, we don't need no more of that. So it's going to stop releasing gonadotropin releasing hormone. It's going to stop releasing FSH and stop releasing LH. If you don't have FSH or LH, then you're not going to be able to develop an egg. So no egg, no baby. Boom. Right? That makes sense. Unless I'm completely wrong. Oh wait, what? There's questions about the male. Okay, wait, let me estrogen high, negative feedback, no ovulation can occur, no fertilization. Boom. Okay. So now the male reproductive cycle, the hypothalamus will simply just release gonadotropin releasing hormone. That will release FSH and LH from the anterior pituitary. So what does each hormone do? So FSH will directly tell the Sertoli cells to nurture and develop the spermatocytes or whatever. Then LH will tell the Leydig cells to make testosterone, which also helps in spermatocytes. So which one is direct? Direct is going to be the FSH, while LH is like support and maintain, so indirect. So yeah, that's all.